Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amor de Soi Wellness. And Donovan Jensen is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Happy Talks. My name is Dr. Alice, and this is my co-host, Donovan. And today we are talking about how to survive the holidays on a tight budget. This year has been quite the recession, so we've been in pretty much the whole year. So finances might be tighter than normal for a lot of people. So Donovan, what are your initial thoughts when it comes to surviving the holidays?
Yeah, so the first thing for me is that, depending on what your social circle looks like or your family or, just whatever your relationships are, having sort of a ton of connections and feeling like you need to buy a nice or like fancy gift for every single person can just add up so fast.
Yeah.
So I feel like especially this year when things are a little bit tighter for a lot of people, but also in other years when things just can be tight for people in general, there are some things that can be done to still retain sort of like the spirit of Christmas or gift giving or whatever other holidays you happen to celebrate without breaking the bank, right? I don't think that necessarily you have to spend a ton of money to be able to sort of foster this like sense of connection and sort of have other people feel as though you care about them. I'd be curious sort of what your initial thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with that idea that, it doesn't like someone buying someone else a expensive gift does not necessarily equate to them caring more because you spent more money on them. And I think sometimes more sincere and thoughtful and creative gifts that don't even necessarily have to cost a whole lot can be more meaningful. But that's my opinion. Other people might differ on that, but I actually just was remembering our conversation last year, and we were talking about some people might put more emphasis on gift giving than others, and I think our general feelings about it is not as important, and that's kind of the general feeling in my family. It's like, yeah, we don't have to give everyone gifts. It's like we're okay with just like spending time together and having a nice dinner.
Yeah, and I feel like if there's people that you actually care about, that you're close to, even if gifts are important to them, you should be able to at least open up that conversation, right? And start wading through the waters to figure out what makes sense. Because even if, you have a gift heavy family or personally are like gift heavy oriented, I don't think it's out of the question to sort of just like communicate like, hey, this has been a rough year. Like things are not exactly where I want them to be. There is a couple other things like on a practical sense that have come to mind that I don't want to forget. But like I know in part of my family where there's like a lot of siblings and uncles and aunts and people are spread out all over the place, they will draw names just so you only have like a limited set of people that you have to get something for. And stuff like that can really help to make everyone still feel as though they're being valued, right? Because you're still getting like it's an equitable distribution of gifts across people, but that can really cut down on the cost of some of the stuff. And I don't know about you, but I've had in the past Christmases where like everyone bought me something, right? And when I was like a little kid, maybe that was like the best ever. But as I get older, more and more, it's like, I don't really need all of this stuff. And also, as I look at my position relative to some of the other people in my family, so for example, my sisters who are like mid to early 20s, right? And they're barely making minimum wage or something like that. Like, not only do I not expect them to get me some huge gift, I actually would. It would make me feel bad. I would not prefer it at all. Like, because I know how much of sort of like a sacrifice or a struggle or whatever else it would be for them to get something super expensive for me. So I mostly bring that up because I feel like sometimes people get caught in this idea of like, oh, all these people have all these other expectations of me without actually getting clear on what it is that the recipient wants.
Yeah, I think you really made an important point of communication is really important. To be, even if not everyone's on the same page with the gift giving, to at least if you're financially stressed, to communicate your position and be like, I really love and care about you, but might not be able to give everyone gifts, or, okay, can we consider like just doing the names in a hat thing? So instead of getting 10 gifts, we're all getting one. Now that will make it easier. Maybe you could put it to a vote, potentially, if that works out in your family, or, just like have the expectations clear between everyone to be like, if you love giving gifts and you still want to do it, go for it, but don't be like, have the expectation, well, I gave you a gift, you better give me one back, kind of a thing, can create more tension in the family. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's another thing that I want to touch on, is I feel like you can get into these cycles that are very transactional, which is absolutely missing the whole point and spirit of the holidays for the majority of people. I guess for some people it may be purely transactional, but in general, that's not what people sign on for. So I think it's important to recognize just that, if that's the actual intent is like sort of this like goodwill and connection and these sorts of things. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make that happen, or maybe any money. So maybe stepping back from sort of just like, oh, they said they wanted a new car, how am I going to get them a new car, and figure out like something that would just be nice for them, can still make a big difference and still be meaningful. Another thing from like a practical perspective that I found helpful is when making gift lists, or like asking for gift lists or whatever else, to have them sort of like sorted into different categories of cost. You can make it really easy because, like, for example, I got a gift list from one of my family members that was just like, here's my, under $5 list, my under $50 list, my under, whatever else. And then it made it very easy to be like, okay, well, I have X amount of money to spend on this. I can just ignore the under $1,000 part of this list because that's too high. But it just helps for narrowing things down, and you can still get something the other person wants without it being so straightforward as like, I want this. Okay, I bought you this exact thing. You can still have some ambiguity and some surprise in what it is that you actually picked.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned lists, but I also wanted to touch on the point that I feel like some people give gifts out of like obligation, and sometimes it's not even what the person wants or needs. It's just like, oh, I need to give a gift because it's Christmas. And it's like, I've gotten plenty. I think that's why my family just stopped giving gifts, because it's like, I'm not going to use this stuff and I don't really need it or want it. And it's just like, feels like a waste. And it's like, it's not meaningful. It's not connecting. It's just like, I could sense that you felt obligated to it. So it's not as connecting as like, I'd rather, could just buy me dinner sometime. Like, prefer that over just some random like pair of socks or something that I don't really need and have plenty of.
Yeah, that's another, it goes back to sort of just like figuring out what it is that the recipient actually wants. Right? Like, I personally would much rather receive gifts in the form of quality time or acts of service than actual physical material goods. Like, because I don't know, want or use or need that many things. But what I do want or need is like to either spend quality time together, or if you just do all my chores, then that would be great.
I would much rather have that. It's like, hey, you want to do the dishes for a whole week? Sweet. That would be like make me way happier than a material thing. Yeah, I generally am similar in that I much prefer experiences, and like when in doubt, I tell my partner, it's like, when in doubt, you could always buy me a massage. I'll be perfectly happy with that. So there's no like ambiguity of like, what would Alice want if he's kind of stumped in, because I would always be happy with that as a gift. But
I think that,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it opens up a lot more options, right? When you're not thinking just purely about like, what is the thing that I can buy or order to get this person, when there is all sorts of like experiential things you could do. There's acts of service things you could do. I don't remember what the other love languages are because they're not high on my list, but there are other ways that you can show sort of like appreciation or care for someone other than buying them things. And for many people, those other forms of appreciation are going to be stronger than gifts. Now, some people are high on gifts, but it's about just like sort of asking. Because like you said, there's been so many holidays that I've received gifts that I'm just like, I guess I'll put this hoodie in the closet and then throw it away in 2 years after I haven't worn it because it's not my style and it's not what I want.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, as ideas of creating the holiday spirit without the gift giving. If it's mutually decided that we're not doing gifts, you could like go out and check out Christmas lights together, or go check out a new restaurant together, or there's a lot of things. One of the things that I did one year when I was, I think, a broke college student was and I did want to give everyone gifts because I cared and I knew people were going to give me gifts. So I felt like, oh, I should give back something. But I was on a tight budget. So I basically made a bunch of like holiday cookies and bought like these cheap like dollar bit like tins. And just made everyone like a mix. Like I made a variety of different cookies and just like sent them. And actually a lot of people like loved them and thought that was more thoughtful to have like a homemade gift. And actually for me, I prefer food over like material things too. That's another thing. If you want to give me a gift, give me food, I'll be happy too. So that's another idea to stay on a budget.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff like that is a really good way to get something that is, how do I put it? Not what comes to mind is universally useful, which is not quite true and not quite what I mean, but but it's more stuff that
very practical.
It's more that like you can sort of put some effort into something and make it into something more valuable and sort of stretch your dollars more, right? Like, because you still have to pick up the ingredients to make them or whatever, but that's going to be cheaper than I don't know, some fancy like expensive gourmet box of cookies that are probably not as good as the ones homemade.
Yeah,
but doing those sorts of things can really make it so that your budget lasts longer. Speaking of which, on another note, practical thing, actually setting a budget. Like, I don't know if you've had this before, but I've had a couple Christmases or holiday seasons where I'm just like, I'm just gonna just whatever. I'll just buy whatever I see for whoever. And then at the end of it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I shouldn't have spent that much money on gifts, because like when it's 5, 10, 15 people, it just like it adds up quick.
Yeah.
So one of the other things is, if you are on a budget, actually having the budget, which sounds pretty dumb and straightforward, but it's something that's bitten me in the butt before.
Yeah. And to actually, one of the things that helps me with that, if you have a budget, like sometimes I don't wait till the last minute to do your shopping if you have a budget, because then it's like, then you're just picking up random crap that they might not benefit from. But usually like through the year, if I come across something that I think would be a good gift for a particular person, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get it now because it's like, it's thoughtful. It's like, I'm thinking about them and I'm just going to store it away and save it for when I think like the opportunity presents itself, essentially. Yeah. And sometimes that helps. I mean, I have done some later Christmas shopping too, but I think I try to get on top of it a little earlier. Like for my niece and nephew, I bought their gifts like months ago. because it's like, they're having birthdays, they're having Christmas. It's like, I don't give gifts for everyone, but for kids in my family, yeah, I feel like more inclined, and I they have more excitement about it. So I found these really cool like puzzles that are not just like the standard puzzles. They like come in the form of an animal, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm not just gonna get it to them randomly because they would like it. I'm just gonna save it for Christmas. And so that's what I did, and that's been waiting. That's been just sitting in storage for a few months, just waiting to be opened for Christmas. Yeah,
that's another good point. I have like some, I don't know, couponing apps, or I don't know what to call them, but some things on my browser installed that as I'm like searching through stuff to buy, it'll show me how the prices have changed in the last couple months.
Yeah.
And prices for quite a few of the things have gone up right before sort of the holiday season. So like you were saying, if you can get ahead of it, if you know that money is going to continue to be tight as the holidays approach, if you can get on top of it a little bit earlier, the prices for some of the stuff may actually be lower. Because like I said, there was a surprisingly high number of things that had recent price increases. So even just on a like dollar for dollar basis, like you might be stretched extra thin if you wait longer. So if you can sort of keep it top of mind, I'm horrible at this. More power to you for being able to do it. But if that is something you can do, that can definitely extend your budget by quite a bit as well.
Yeah. And it's putting, like, if you're doing all your spending in the same month, that's putting more financial strain on you if you were to like spread it out over the year. So it's like small things here and there, like accumulating. It makes it a little easier too.
That's a great point, actually. I haven't done it recently, but in past years, I would start setting aside money early, like, because I don't do my shopping early. Doesn't work for me. But I would start setting money aside early so that, like you said, like it wasn't just December. Oh, now I have twice as many, bills. They're not bills, but I need to spend twice as much as I usually do. And like, where am I going to? I didn't make twice as much money this month, so where is this going to come from? And I've also heard from other people anecdotally that is something that has been really helpful for them too, is to just know, I mean, December's coming every year, holidays are coming, so start setting aside money early for that purpose.
Right. And actually, even if you don't have the money, if you're getting your gifts early, you can at least start thinking about what you're going to get, so you can like plan accordingly. Like, okay, if I want to get this for X person, then I need to save X amount every month to be able to do that. And that kind of makes it. I did decide this year to like think about, what do I want to give some people, and try to like wait till like Black Friday, like see all the deals, and then so I could just get a lot of my Christmas shopping on the big sales days, and waiting for like those moments. And or you could just like, if you know what you want to get someone in March, you can just be like, well, I'm just gonna watch how the prices vary over the next few months and try to get it when it's at the lowest.
Yeah, if you have the foresight and the planning to do some of this stuff, you can just make it so much further. But all that aside, I also wanted to note out that honestly, for most people, probably you don't need to get something crazy big for it to be meaningful. I would say that the stuff that I've appreciated the most in my adulthood, now maybe as a kid it was different. Like as a kid, there's specific things that I wanted, and it was like, I got this thing, this is awesome, or I didn't. But I'll also say that I never like remembered any of those things far into the future, right? I don't remember what I was disappointed to not get when I was 11. Like I have no idea, unless I got everything, and I don't remember that either. So like just the sentiment, I feel like is more important, or doing something. And as I get older, it's less and less about the gift and more about just like are we able to connect in some way? Like, am I able to be with the people I care about and connect with them, whether or not they get me anything at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's honestly the most valuable thing is that time and connection. But yeah, you know, if you were to do the foresight or pre-planning, you know, just kind of like pay attention to your people and just kind of like for example, what I'm gonna get, one of the gifts I'm getting my husband this year, which I know he's not gonna listen to this, so share it ahead of time. But it was something small and simple because we went to Austin, Texas in October, and he was like, oh, you know, he wears a lot of baseball hats, but he was like, you know, it'd be cool to have like a cowboy hat. So we were like looking for a cowboy hat, but a lot of the stores, they were like $100 or more, and we're like, we don't want to spend that much on it, like something like that. So we even went to like Goodwill in Austin, Texas, and we still couldn't find like a decent cowboy hat. So just like a little note in my memory bank of like something he said he wanted, that it's not like, oh, I absolutely need this right now, but just like I made that mental note. So I like looked on Amazon, and I found one for like $4. I was like, sweet. So it's just the fact that I remembered that little thing, I think will make it a little more meaningful. And I doubt he's gonna wear it that frequently, maybe like once a year, if that. But it's just like the thought that counts, really, I think can go a long way.
Yeah, which is why it's a $4, not $100 one. It's not an everyday.
Yeah, I know he's not gonna wear it that often, but when he has the occasion, well, yeah.
So I wanted to add another angle or something different, which is like stuff that I think is maybe not a good idea to do around the holidays, around budgeting.
Let's talk about that.
Like, so I know one thing that it's become more and more common in general, but I imagine it spikes during the holiday, but it's like putting things on payment plans that you can't actually afford. Now, in one sense, like, let's say you buy, I don't know, a piece of workout gear or something that's a couple $1,000s, and it's going to cost you $50 a month or whatever, and you sort of have that all planned out. That's fine, right? Like if you want to spread it out, because sometimes spreading out some of those bigger purchases can help you make them.
Yeah.
However, you have to be really careful when you do stuff like this, because I've seen people get trapped up on, oh, cool, I bought this, and then I bought this, and I bought that, and I'm paying off all of these things. Is like death by a thousand cuts, you know, where all of a sudden you have $700, $1,000 bill every month just paying off all these little things. So I don't think it's out of the question to do stuff like that, but you really have to pay attention when you do it.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I didn't even consider, because that's something I generally don't do. But the other thing I think we should talk about is credit cards, and being mindful of, you know, just because you have a certain credit limit doesn't mean you should hit that limit, because the interest rates on credit cards are insane, you know, 10 to like 20% a lot of times. And that can really add up and cut into. So just like keeping in mind, like, okay, I mean, my general principle like is to pay off my credit card every month is my goal. So I'm not dealing with the crazy interest rates. And I'm still building credit and getting miles points. But you know, once in a while I have to have, like, when there's big expenses and I'm not able to pay off my credit card, you know, I plan for like, how am I gonna pay it off eventually, hopefully within a few months, and not having that plan figured out is generally not a good idea.
Yeah, I think some people get wrapped up in this idea of like, oh, I need to buy all of this stuff so that the holidays are perfect.
Right.
And if you end up putting that all on a credit card or other like short-term loan options,
right?
Yeah, you're basically adding 20%, well, roughly, give or take 5%, to the cost of the stuff. So if you buy $1,000 worth of stuff, you're paying $1,200 for it. Like that amount, and not only that, but if you're only making the minimum payments, if you can't pay it back, then you are increasing that by way more than 20%. And basically it's just never, like, I guess I shouldn't say never, but in my mind, it's very hard to wrap my head around the idea that spending like up to 20% or up to 100% more on sort of some gifts is going to be worth it in the long run, right? Like, I don't think it will ever make the holiday experience 100% better or whatever, right? Like, I feel like it's just something that people can get sucked into and then spend so long trying to claw their way back out of. Another sort of mental trap I've seen is people looking at their credit cards like, oh, this has a $3,000 limit, so I have $3,000, which is not true.
Not really.
Like, you do not have that money, So if you can sort of get it in your head, or something more like, just basically base whatever money you actually have as your base point for spending, it's just a lot safer, because if you would never spend like, if it's, we'll just say it's a drink, right? Like a soda for $1, you would never spend like 3, 4, 5 times that much on that thing. And then those bigger purchases, like, you can really get underwater fast.
Definitely. Yeah. I've had a friend who I forget what like financial book that she read, but she literally like doesn't use a credit card as much as she's able to, because I get that some things it's hard to get by without a credit card, but she like literally just like pulls out all cash, so she's paying everything in cash, and she literally has like envelopes. So if you don't feel like you're able to manage your credit cards well and pay them off frequently, maybe this is a possible idea for you. It's just like pull out the cash that you have, so that's literally your budget, set aside the cash for your bills, your rent, your food, and then gifts. And that's all the money you get to spend. And once you're out of that, that's all you get. And that's the limit, essentially. So it helps you kind of stay more on track if that's using credit cards it's a very slippery slope for a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. That the method you just described is very effective for a lot of people who have trouble sort of managing credit card spending, or thinking about it in the way that I described, where it's like, you don't actually have this money. Because for some people, just that, having it and having access to the money feels like they actually have the money in their bank account or whatever else. And if you can't shake that sort of mindset, what you described is probably the most common and most effective strategy people use to keep their spending in line with where it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking of a few more potential ideas of like, if you're going to put less emphasis on the gifts or less pricey gifts if you're on a tight budget. I'm like, maybe just watching like a holiday movie together, or doing crafts together, or playing board games together. I think that's a little more enjoyable and connecting than or if we're just getting like one gift for like everyone, maybe that's just like a board game, and then you can play that on Christmas Day or something like that. So just throwing a few more for ideas out there before we wrap up today. Do you have any last minute thoughts or ideas?
I think that mostly covers it, just again, I feel like it's easier to just get wrapped up in this idea of like exhibitionist gift giving, right? Where actually it somehow becomes more about like, oh, I want to present the image of someone giving a nice gift, and less about like, I want to actually make the other person feel nice and appreciated. And I don't say this from like a high horse, right? I've definitely been sucked into it before, where it's like, oh, what can I give that has the best appearance? Or like, what will I feel the best about giving someone? Which is just not the correct way to think about it. And as I have gained more experience and sort of pushed myself to think more from what's actually useful, right? Like, what does this other person want? What will actually make them feel nice? What will help us be connected, and whatever else. The gift giving piece becomes less and less important, and the price of the gifts, especially for sure, becomes less and less important. So easier said than done, but personally moving in that direction has helped me a lot with sort of alleviate some of the pressure that I had around like, oh, I have to spend all this money to buy all these people all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we covered this topic pretty well. Thank you everyone for tuning in this week. We appreciate you. And if you appreciate us, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and help spread the happiness in the world. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please take a second to subscribe, as it really helps out a lot. If you're looking for more content, there's all sorts of information over at howtohappy.com. And if you want something a little bit more condensed and concise, I've also written the book Mindscaping, which is essentially a framework for optimizing happiness. So we'll have the link there as well. And that's all I've got. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.